Thanks everybody for coming. My name is Warren Stanyer. I'm CEO and Chairman of ALX Resources based in Vancouver, BC. We're a junior exploration company. We're a pure uranium company for a number of years. Recently got into nickel and other energy metals. So we look at what we're doing with uranium, lithium, nickel, but it's all part of the energy metals package. Forward-looking statements, a little bit about the corporate structure and how we were created. We were born of discovery in 2013 as Alpha Exploration, a spin-out from the takeover by Fission Uranium of Alpha Minerals for 189 million, which pegged the Patterson Lake deposit, now RRR. I guess that would be $378 million value. I just looked at Fission's market cap a minute ago and it's 671 million, so I guess they're doing okay. We explore in Canada mainly. We have property in Norway that's really not material. I'm here, my CFO is here as well, Patrick Graining. I'm not sure if he's in the room. David Miller, former president of Strathmore, CEO. Jean-Jacques Gautreaux, former chairman of the World Nuclear Association. Dr. Howard Hogum, a businessman in Vancouver. Charles Roy, 30 years at Cameco, mentored me as a young prospector who was interested in learning the business. Jody DeRouge was one of the founders of ALX in that he was with Lakeland Resources. Lakeland, of course, merged with Alpha Exploration to form this company. Seard Eriks, known Seard now for over 25 years. He's retired from us, but still helps with permitting, which is a very important part of what we do. Dave Quirt, another mentor, worked at SRC for years, worked with Orano. He's a brilliant geochemist and geologist. And Ken Wozniak, who helped discover the Patterson Lake deposit, RRR, with just a comment. So, you know, what we do is we look at information from the past. We search for the things that other people missed. And so that's what I want to talk about today. A case study of Patterson Lake, how it was found, what was missed, what was found. Dr. Larry Hulbert is our nickel expert. So we're across Canada, as I said, mainly in Saskatchewan, where our uranium properties are located, of course, and a couple of nickel properties. We have a gold property and a couple of lithium properties, because staking in Saskatchewan is probably the cheapest in the world, 60 cents a hectare. And you can acquire properties. You may develop them slightly for a year or two. Then you can decide whether to let them lapse or put more money in or sell them. So like I've seen in many of my peers this week or last couple of days, we are a prospect generator. We may develop a property on our own. Not necessarily to production, but certainly we could option it or sell it if somebody is interested. Saskatchewan has a great legacy. Can we turn that down? Thanks. A great legacy of production in not only uranium, over 900 million. I counted that up a year or so ago, since about 1976, I believe. Gold, 2 million ounce gold deposit, and of course Flin Flon and Creighton, the base metal mines that ran for 100 years practically. So our properties in the basin, we have approximately, or in Saskatchewan, 200,000 hectares. It changes. Sometimes we'll let something lapse or we'll stake something new, but it's approximately 200,000. As you can see, we are in the southwest area as well, near RRR, near Arrow. On the center basin, on the shear zone there, I think it's the Cable Bay shear zone. I think I heard that mentioned earlier. We're also near some new discoveries in the southeast, and we've had a strong presence in the north rim of the basin for a number of years. So this is the Athabasca Basin. If you're not familiar with it, it's kind of shaped like a cereal bowl. It's thin at the edges and it's deep in the middles, and that's a hole that was drilled in 1979, and that hole would probably cost $1 million to drill today. So we don't go there. Evolution of the model. In 1970, a US oil company, like many, were exploring in the basin. They were looking for uranium in the sandstone. They didn't know that they just missed the Midwest deposit by probably, I don't know, 30 meters. had they just gone a little bit deeper. They were very disappointed with that drilling program because they found nothing. Because the sandstone is usually barren. Maybe you get 1 parts per million of uranium throughout the sandstone, but in this case, they just about got it. But eventually, they learned about Key Lake, and they drilled, and they also found an unconformity-style deposit, which is where the uranium accumulates at the interface between sandstone and basement rocks. And graphitic conductors and faults are usually a part of that too, because they help with the chemical materialization of the deposit. But now we're in a different model. We've seen some of these today already. We're going deeper in the basement, partly because when Millennium was found, suddenly the explorers realized that you could be a couple of 100 meters into the basement, whereas before we would stop at 50 meters into the basement. Then it became 100. And then when Cameco found Millennium, then you started going 150. And I believe, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but Andy Brown at NextGen drilled 300 meters into the basement and found Arrow. So there. So world in transition, I'm going to go quickly through this. Critical metals list, everything in bold is something we look for. And these metals give substantial tax benefits to investors in flow-through, for example, which we're running a flow-through financing right now. Fossil fuels down, electricity up in the next 25 years. And of course, government programs in the US and now in Canada, something was announced this week, a $1.5 billion critical metal strategy by the federal government. So this is all going to help us. And here's the chart of the uranium price through my whole career. Starting around 1998, I think we first decided we would look for uranium in Pioneer Metals in 1997, which became UX. UX has now been taken over by Uranium Energy Corporation. There's that spike in 2007, the fall off in 2008, the recovery, then another fall off in 2011. So this is relevant, especially this area right here where we stagnated for quite a while. And there's the Fukushima drop right there, I guess. Anyway, now we're on this uptrend and we're all quite happy about it because uranium is a very lucrative thing to look for. As we know, it's incredibly valuable. And in Saskatchewan, we have the highest grades in the world, therefore, per ton basis, as has been pointed out. So here's an example of how it ebbs and flows. 2005, things were really getting going. November 03 was when uranium finally got up to over $20 a pound, and suddenly there was a lot of people getting interested in it, whereas I first called a broker about uranium to tell him, hey, we're promoting a new uranium company. He's like, what do I want uranium for? It just about hung up, he almost did. But there's 06, 07, and then the fall off to 2020. Pretty sparse in claims in the Athabasca Basin, but here we are today. So 2023, we're now approaching those levels. But as you can see, people aren't staking in the middle because it's just too deep. So how to find a uranium deposit? We've seen where people have figured it out, where they hadn't figured it out. So here's the RRR case study. So there was a lot of conductors that have been found over the years. A lot of people tramped around these areas looking for any uranium expression whatsoever. In this case, they didn't find it. They tried to drill a couple of holes, Canadian Occidental, known as CanOxy. So where do you drill? It was just a place where people drove to go by up to Clough Lake. And a joint venture was formed between Fission Energy and ESO Uranium, which I became a director of in 2010. And somebody got the bright idea of flying this tiny little Cessna with an incredibly sensitive radiometric unit and flew it and found a radioactive zone on surface. But you really couldn't see anything, and everyone else had walked around there 30 years before. What happened was we dug these boulders up, and that changed everything. So this was in 2011. Summer of 2011, Fukushima had happened. People were kind of, uranium wasn't that great at the time, but 40% uranium in boulders is something that can't be ignored. Chemical called me the first day. I was a director of the 50% partner at that time. So drilling began. Where do you drill? Well, okay, it looks like maybe that conductor up there where the boulders might have come from. So this is hole 16, drilled in the fall of 2012, late summer, early fall. And it got a couple of hundred ppm, which is moderately anomalous, but there was one thing there that was important, and that's the pseudoite that Ken Wozniak spotted. And when he did his analysis, he's a mineralogist, geochemist, he said, you guys are close to a deposit. You're like right next to it. So, okay, maybe he's crazy, maybe he's right. We drilled a hole right next to it, 9 meters away. And that was the discovery hole at Patterson Lake. So Ken was right. I love Ken. 1.1% U308 over 8.5 meters. And it was game on. But winter was coming. The lake had to freeze over. So where do you go in the lake? Found this book in Charlie O'Sullivan's office on Pender Street, 1978, a guy named Willie Dick. He was a radon expert. And he talked about radon in winter when, in the summer, when it's warm, radon could go anywhere. But in the winter, when lakes freeze, it only goes one way, up, and it sits. Everything's static. There's no currents. So we devised a new method of radon sampling in lakes in winter. And we got this beautiful anomaly 390 meters away from the discovery hole, hole 22. So we drilled it. And 390 meters step out got 34 meters of almost 5% uranium, U308. So that was exciting. That's a piece that I took that picture in 2013 on a site visit. That's the stuff you're looking for, black, sometimes red. So what that led to was this. And the deposit is actually bigger than what's shown here because there's other zones further to the west, but that was the discovery hole. There's the 390 meters and what eventually became, and it's in excess of 115 million pounds of U308 today with a value of over 600 million Canadian in the ground. So how do we apply this knowledge or this experience to what we're doing? There's our properties again. There's a lot of stuff to go through when you're looking at historical information. First of all, I'd like to show you the Black Lake Project, which is here, where we made a discovery in 2004, right about there. That was in UX. One of the first things that we did was drill that property. That hole was a discovery hole, 0.7% over 4.4 meters. It was exciting, but couldn't find a follow-up hole that could match it. And there's been quite a few that did find uranium, everything in boldface there, 6. There's 9 holes, 9 occurrences in drill holes that were quite important, but so far no deposits stitched together. So we have the property immediately to the north of that, 100% owned. We have 40% of Black Lake today, ALX does. But here's a boulder from 2013 that was found. Radioactive boulders, well, anytime you find something radioactive with uranium in it on the ground in the Athabasca, that's a darn good thing. So Gibbons Creek had a hole in 2015 that was 0.13% over 0.23 of a meter. Didn't seem like a lot when the price of uranium was low, but it is a sniff. That's what we call it. And you really need to keep looking in that area, but things kind of went a little sideways on that. You know, we started looking further out, looking for something deeper, swinging for the fences on these other untested conductors that were parallel to the Black Lake conductive system. And there's that star where the discovery was made, and there's our hole. And a new set of eyes, geophysically, has led to a new plan. So this is El Dorado's map from 1980, just to show you some of the stuff that we work with, the vintage of this map. That was a boulder area where many boulders were found. This is where drill holes were drilled. So our hole is sitting on a low resistivity trend, so somewhat conductive. There's a little bit of graphite there. It's kind of disseminated, probably why it didn't show up like a zinger of a conductor. And there's the hole. GC15-3. It's bleached. It's got uranium in that yellow outline. So it's interesting. So what do we do about it? So a new set of eyes on the geophysics said, hey, you've got a major structure coming right into your property from where that other hole, the other discovery is, the Black Lake discovery. So we started looking at it. I realized that no work has been done here. There's no holes. So we've now, as of today, I believe our 2-person crew is in Stony Rapids. They are going to use a similar device to this to walk a very tight grid, 50-meter grid, and we'll get a much better look at this area. Those little crosses aren't holes. The holes are all up here. This is the fault coming through. There's something going on because up here there's a big radon anomaly as well that has puzzled us for a long time. So why is that radon there? You put a hole in it, you find nothing. So is there some kind of a pathway for radon gas to get up here, maybe from down here? So we're looking forward to the results of this walking mag to really show us where to drill in the future here. And that's what we're raising money for right now. In the time I have left, I'm down to 3 minutes, so we'll go quickly. We've done some prospecting here. There's been a couple of discoveries in this area. That's base load. They had nice results today, their highest yet, 1% over several meters and change. And this is 92 energy, so they're kind of dueling it there on the border. We have found some interesting rocks using the same plane that we used at Patterson Lake years ago, the same contractor, Special Projects, Inc. And if there's something buried, you can find it with that plane. You just have to, and you get great GPS positioning on where these radioactive occurrences are. So this boulder was found in 2021, and we didn't really pay a lot of attention to it at first. But when it was looked at by a very experienced geologist, Robert Campbell, a fellow that works with us now, he said, you know, this is the same kind of rock that baseload and 92 energy are drilling into. So we've gone out just recently. We had a news release this week. It didn't make it into this presentation because it all had to be done last week. But we found some more boulders that are very interesting. And more will come from this project. Right now, winter has set in, so. And there's the Mackenzie Lake, the major blocks, and some of the areas that we need to concentrate on. We've got faults going through, all the structures, all the things that you want. It's just a matter of time and money. I won't go into this project because there's just not enough time, but this again was staked in the staking rush of September 2021. It's called Saber. This is where people didn't cooperate with each other in the past. There's the middle section that was missing in the previous slide. We get the data for free from the government, and that's what we put together is a new look, a whole look at the property. So we did some ground loops, which are these little ground loops here, and over a drill hole that UX drilled in 2006 that had a lot of dravite in it. Wood dravite is very important as a peripheral expression of uranium. And lo and behold, they missed the target by 275 meters. They were aiming for it, but they missed it because I guess maybe there was something wrong with the positioning of where they thought the conductor was. But with our ground survey, we can clearly see it, and we know where to put a hole. So that's the kind of thing we do. Hook Carter, we're on trend with Patterson Lake and with NextGen, and I don't have much more time. We sold 80% of that project to Denison for $4.5 million 7 years ago. So we're carried at 20% until they spend $12 million, and they spent about $7 million. They've drilled 15 holes. The holes are very widely spaced on the property. As you can see, there's huge density in the occurrences that are already known and the deposits. Just a little bit of the hallmark of what we see in the Hook Carter holes. Next step is a very deep penetrating survey. And this is just a new property, Bradley Lake. We just picked it up. Someone let it lapse. And so our 2023-24 is working on Mackenzie Lake. We might do an airborne survey there. But Gibbons Creek, we're doing the mag survey. We want to get some drill targets and drill it. Thanks very much. I just ran out of time, but if there's time for any questions. Thank you.